Deja vu. 2 schools wrecked by Katrina. FEMA promised to rebuild them, then changed its mind.
The door to be slammed in our face the way it was is really, it's unacceptable.
Students and parents are still waiting for help. And tonight, we're keeping FEMA honest.
Well, FEMA finds itself still under fire over the hurricane hurricanes, I should say, along the Gulf Coast. In a moment, the outrage over a promise to rebuild schools, a promise not kept. And now a federal judge has ordered FEMA to pay to resume housing aid to thousands of Hurricane Katrina evacuees. The federal judge criticized FEMA for cutting the housing and subjecting victims of the storm to a convoluted application process. Your government at work. Earlier today, I spoke to former President Jimmy Carter about the situation now existing in the Gulf Coast. So I know you're heading back down to New Orleans soon. In your opinion, has enough progress been made? And if not, what is holding it up?
I'm going down on behalf of Habitat for Humanity, which is building houses right and left every day, and has made a lot of progress. I noticed in the New York Times report last week that $7.8 billion was appropriated by the Congress for loans to families that want to rebuild their homes. And as of the 1st of October, only 11 loans had been made to more than 10,000 families that wanted them. And I think the last report I saw was that 28 loans have been made for people to rebuild their own homes. So I'm going down to see what's going on among Habitat home builders, but also to maybe bring some publicity to the fact that practically nothing is being done for the Katrina victims, despite the early promises of support for them.
The work that Habitat has done there is just incredible, as well as many church and just volunteer organizations. I've been down there a bunch of times.
A lot of
last spring break, there were tens of thousands of college kids, high school kids, church groups down there, taking their spring break and helping out total strangers, helping out their community. So there's a lot of good work being done, but I know it's frustrating and enraging for the people down there when you go to the lower 9th Ward and there's people's possessions still literally laying out in the street, and it's a hard thing to figure out just what is going on. Do you feel like that part of America, that what happened there is being forgotten to some extent?
I think it's been forgotten to a large extent. These volunteers are still flooding down there, and that's a very gratifying thing for me to see. Both Habitat and many other organizations and students, including students, they've done a good job. But the federal, state, and local government process to get the money appropriated to the families so they can start rebuilding their homes is a total disaster. And I think it's pretty well forgotten. And I think visits by me and other people might bring attention to this and expedite the process. That's what I hope.
More now on FEMA and schools left in limbo. Keeping them honest, here's CNN's Joe Johns.
See if this sounds familiar.
There was no one ever be able to say, let's get this thing going, let's take care of this situation. We'd always deal with a new person and have to show them the whole ropes all over again.
Did you ever know who was in charge?
Never.
Here we go again. Charges of indecision and blundering by a federal agency Americans love to hate, FEMA. We're talking about damage from Hurricane Rita last year, 2 devastated schools and kids and parents waiting for help. A few months ago, the folks at FEMA told the schools, one in Iberia Parish and one in Vermilion Parish in Louisiana, that they would get millions to relocate to higher ground. Iberia Parish schools were so sure the money was coming, they spent nearly $400,000 on land to build a new school. FEMA even helped them draw up the plans. And then FEMA took it back.
The door to be slammed in our face the way it was is really, it's unacceptable, and I don't believe it's over with.
What happened? Put simply, FEMA said it made a mistake, that the school in question, Peebles Elementary, which lies squarely in the path of future floods, did not suffer enough damage to qualify for relocation after all.
The field staff made an inaccurate assessment regarding the scope of the damage. But our system is designed to review those assessments and catch and correct those assessments.
Even though FEMA insists this was an isolated case among 18,000 such projects, this one turned into a political firestorm. Senator Mary Landrieu, who posed for a photo op at Peebles when the relocation money was first offered, was fit to be tied.
We want a FEMA that is smart, that works, that stretches taxpayer dollars and uses them wisely. And unfortunately, we don't have that kind of FEMA in America today.
And this week, First Lady Laura Bush canceled a trip here where she'd been expected to meet with school kids. Her office wouldn't say why she canceled. And with all the heat coming down, no surprise, FEMA is all of a sudden talking about a way out.
They may very well receive federal assistance comparable to and potentially even equal to the amount of assistance that they were originally expecting to receive.
Sounds like a happy ending, right? Maybe for one school, but what about the other one? This is Henry Elementary School in Vermilion Parish. It's one of 2 schools in the parish that has not opened since Hurricane Rita. It's a very similar situation to what happened in Iberia, only here, arguably, it's worse. Henry was all but gutted by Hurricane Rita, and yes, FEMA promised it would provide funding to relocate and rebuild, and FEMA reversed itself here too. In fact, local officials now fear FEMA may be scaling back on other school reconstruction projects. It's enough to make a Cajun rage.
FEMA's got a plague on their hand.
Why?
And it plague because the whole South is suffering.
Another bureaucratic tangle, and while FEMA looks for a solution, the kids are still riding the buses, with everyone wondering what the government is going to do.
I feel like I'm as an administrator should have the answer for some of these questions, and I don't.
We'll be watching and keeping them honest. Joe Johns, CNN, Iberia Parish, Louisiana.
It just seems like this never ends. It seems to be the same stories just over and over, no matter how much time passes. Incredibly frustrating, John.